I have about 5 minutes here to kind of introduce what we're going to be showing in this proof of concept. If you've ever heard from salespeople before, it's very tough to say anything in 5 minutes, but I'm going to try my best to keep it to a very minimum here so you can see what you're here to see, which is the demonstration. So we were glad to be invited to participate in this because when we saw a list of the 10 drivers that were just being discussed, we could really see a tremendous amount of correlation between what our technology does and the specific drivers you're looking for. So we really believe Pega can do a great job to kind of lay the foundation for a lot of the things that you're going to be trying to do over the next months and years here. 3 areas that we wanted to be able to talk about with 4 accompanying topics. We're looking to, when we're talking about the psychotropic medication approval process, we're looking to be able to accomplish some different things to get that user adoption that we're hoping for. We're looking to help be able to build a system that is very useful and efficient. Again, as I believe it was Paul was saying, the build it and they will come does not work. We have to have a system that is going to achieve the objectives of what the different personas or user groups are trying to achieve and be efficient. So reduce the time that it takes for a process, eliminate errors and do things like that. System must be very user-friendly. When we have processes that touch a lot of different user groups, we're not going to be have the ability to like train physicians or train different user groups. We have to have an interface that is intuitive enough for them to be able to pick up very quickly and easily. We must be able to flexibly address a number of different data sources. So there's any number of different systems of record that you'll have, and we need to be able to get to the systems where the data is. We're not talking about ripping and replacing, but using the resources you have to effectively bring information to the right person at the right time. And we must allow for flexible processes. So there's going to be some similarities in different departments, but there's also going to be a number of differences. So how do we create a solution that not only identifies what the needs are today, but what they're going to be moving forward? So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Dave, who's going to be able to show you our proof of concept. Then I'll get back for a couple of closing comments. If perchance the demonstration runs long here, I have put a flyer that talks about modernization, and there's a business card attached. We're really only going to be able to touch the tip of the iceberg today in terms of what this proof of concept will show you, let alone what Pega can do for your interoperability needs. So if you want to send me an email, we can do a joint webinar session where we do a much deeper dive into this particular solution, or just talk to you about how we can support your business process, case management type of needs moving forward. So go ahead and grab one of those flyers off the desk there. I've also put one under all your windshields out on your car, so you'll have those too in case you don't get this. So with that said, I'll turn this over to Dave.
So a lot of good issues about organizational change management have been described. We're going to get down to where the rubber meets the road now and really talk about when you're implementing solutions, what are some of the things that you need to look for and be doing to make sure that you're going to be able to solve some of these very stubborn OCM problems that you run into. So I'm going to log in here. We're going to walk through 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is going to focus with the first point that Bill talked about, and that is when you're building a system like this, it's got to be useful to people. It's got to help them get their job done more easily, or you're going to have a very hard time with adoption of it. And that's one of the key themes that we really need to focus on here. So I'm going to log in as a social worker, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the whole process that you've been over many times before, from start to finish, and I'm going to do that in about 10 minutes, hopefully, here. What I've done is I've come into our main portal for our social worker. One of the key things that you'll see, to follow up on the theme that Rich brought up, is that some of those key performance indicators that you really want to be measuring with the scorecard can be built and should be built right into your solutions. Up here you can see a couple of those lagging factors that we talked about. How quickly are we completing our cases, and are we doing that in a timely fashion according to a service level agreement? This keeps those types of really important things to see if we're meeting our customers' needs right up in front of everybody, and so that you can see on a moment by moment basis how that's working. So I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to start a new process. And you can see there's a lot of different ways that I can find my users here. I can come in and start a search, and then I can narrow down that search to find a particular person using name or a number of other things. So Chad's the first person that I need to create one of these things for. And what you'll hopefully notice right away is that to help out with training to make this simpler, we've made our web application form look a lot like the existing PDF form that people are used to working with. Having it feel and look close to what people are used to really helps overcome some of those training barriers. So I'm going to walk through this fairly quickly. We'll go through and you can see we've got all the information for the JV220 here, and what you'll notice is that it's full of data already. We're able to go out to CWS CMS and pull in the pertinent data for this, so all the person has to do instead of re-entering data or doing something else, just ensure that that data is correct, and if everything's okay, then they can go ahead and continue on the process. That's going to bring us to the second form. We've done some things a little bit differently here. Here you can see that I've split this one into two forms to sort of walk the user through piece by piece on the data to make it a little bit simpler. It's easy to make things happen all at once if people prefer that, or to break it up into smaller steps. And there's good reasons for doing that for different people. One of the things you'll notice that I'll talk about in just a moment is that my numbers seem to be a little bit off here. I'm going to talk about that as we go through scenario 2, but other than that, all the information again has been pulled in for us, and everything looks good here, so I just have to review it. And we've got everything that we need. So I'm going to finish my part, and at this point in time as a social worker, I'm done with the things that I need to do. And my first box on our workflow over there can see some other work is being tracked by the system now. In particular, our physician has been assigned a form JV228 to fill out. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to very quickly also switch over here. And if not too many people are watching videos on the Wi-Fi, which they aren't, you can see that we got an email that came through here for our physician, letting him know that he has some new work that he needs to do. This is going to be important for people outside the system who aren't logged on to it all day long. We can send them emails or texts or anything else that you need to do to let them know that they've got some work that needs to be done within the system. And so we'll jump back over here now. And I am going to log off as a social worker, and I'm going to log in as the physician. So when I come in, you'll see I have a different portal that just focuses me on the particular things that I need to do. In particular, here's my work list, and I can see I have a new item assigned to me. At this point in time, I'm now able to focus on the 220A, but I have full access to all the information for the 220 and the 221 also if I need to go to those to figure out what's going on. The other thing that's important about this is not only have we pulled in some information here from CWS CMS, but we've actually gone out to the electronic health record system and we've pulled in information about this particular case from that. One of the key things that's going to make adoption of a system like this really important again is that it makes it easier for people to do their jobs. Not having to go out and look things up and retype them in is one of those things that really makes a huge difference in adoption and overall organizational change management. If I need to, I can type in things that don't exist in the current system. Everything else that's already there, I can go in and see. We can see from the EHR system what the person has been prescribed already. If I need to change that, I can come in and I have a form that walks the person through what they need to do to add on another medication right there. But we're going to take that and we're going to submit it.
And again, those forms are very dynamic. You're not going to see the entire form if you don't need half of those fields to accomplish a particular task you're looking to achieve. You're going to see the information that is contextual and necessary depending on what your role is at that time. Also, perhaps by entering a certain value in one of those fields, the forms are dynamic, so an entire another section may appear on your screen because you chose a certain option. Again, just providing you with the input and output that's necessity for your position.
Bill's stealing my thunder there a little bit, but we'll catch up.
I told you I had to talk, Dave. You can.
That's right. It's hard getting him away from the mic once he's up there. So I'm going to log off as the physician, and now the next step is that it should go back to the social worker because all the initial paperwork is in. We're going to log back in as a social worker, and I can see here now in my work queue that this has been assigned to me. I can open it up. And here, realistically, there's just a step to make sure everything's sort of ready to go to send over to the courts. Because we've built a lot of those rules right into the system and made sure people have actually filled this in, we could probably even take this step out of the official system if we wanted to. It would just save one piece of work that people don't have to do, again, simplifying what needs to go on there. If they need to see what's going on, they can jump in and see what's going on in the forms. The other thing that's really important here is that we can have multiple views of the data. And this is really important from an interoperability standpoint. So not only do I have the data in the raw format in my application, but we also can expose it then as the PDF forms, which people are used to, if they're more comfortable in seeing the data that way and knowing what they need to get out of it from there. So that's really important also. I'm going to close that out for the moment, though, and I'm going to come back here. I've reviewed everything. It looks good. I'm going to submit it. And my work is done for the moment, so I can close this out. If I hit the red X, I can close it out. And then I'm going to log off. And the next step in our process goes to the county clerk at the courts. So I'm going to log in here. You'll see that they have the same dashboard so that they can see everything that's going on. Also, they have their own separate work basket down here for shared work for them. And I'm going to open that up. And here we've gone out and we've pulled some information from the court system, just their internal case number and some other things. So again, we stop people from having to re-enter data. It's a huge time saver, making it a lot easier for them and making it much easier for them to adopt the system. They can see all the other information that they need to see also. So everybody has everything they need right at their fingertips. So I'll submit that. And we'll see that my work is done, and the next step is this has been assigned to the parent. So I'm going to log off here, and I'm going to pretend that I'm the parent now. And log back in. And here I've got my parental form, and again, it's a simplified one, and I can see that I have something that's assigned for me that I have to do. We also sent them an email because, again, they won't be logging into the system daily. Here I've made the form even simpler. I've added a lot of instructions because many of the parents may only do this once. This isn't something they're going to be doing all the time, so it needs to be really simple for them, even simpler than the other people who are going to be using it. So here I have some implicit instructions about what they need to do. Next, we've pulled, again, information from CWS CMS about who they are and where they live. They can review that and make sure everything's okay. And then one of the nice things about this type of system versus the current paper-based system, with the paper-based system, they have 2 days to fill it out if they're going to dispute this. But if they aren't going to dispute it, what do you have to do? Wait the 2 days to make sure that they don't turn it in so that you can continue on with the process. Here we've simplified it so that the parent, if they've read everything and understand it, can agree to it immediately, and it can continue on its way, taking some of the time out of the overall process and getting the medical approval through much, much more quickly. So here, everything looks good. Again, the parent has done what they need to do, which brings us to our last step. Once I log off here, I'm going to log on as the judge. I'll log into the system. They again have a more simplified one, just pointing them to this particular case. They can come in here and they're ready to do a final ruling on this. Again, they've got full access to all the information that they need here. In either the forms, you can see our list of emails and other documents has kept growing as we've worked through this. And again, we've pre-populated everything for them. If there's nothing interesting on this one, they can just make sure everything is good to go and hit submit. And we now, in about 10 minutes from start to finish, have gone through a complete life cycle of one of these cases. Think about it just for a moment, what this would take if you were doing it with the manual process, with papers and filling them out and sending them out. Even to do a simple case like this where everything is perfect, it's going to take days or a week or even longer than that, just moving things physically around. They get lost and everything else. Here we're tracking it, making sure everything works right the first time for people. So that's our first one, and now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to focus on two other things that are really important for organizational change management on an application like this. The first thing I want to talk about is training. When you think about the number of people and the number of different departments that are involved, plus people outside the departments like physicians and parents and other people, training on an application like this is just massive. And it could take a huge amount of time and cost a huge amount of money to even do just a little bit. So again, what we want to do is build systems that we call are intent-driven or intent-led. That is, the system walks the person through steps by step, making it much easier with very little training to do things and to do them right the first time. So here I'm going to start a new case, and I'm going to highlight a couple different things along the way as we go. Here I know who I want to find to start a case for. I'm going to start one for Jared. And Form 220, I'm just going to look at. It's pretty good. What I want to do is get to the next form, because this is going to highlight a little bit more of what we're talking about. So we talked about intent-driven, and what that means is that the application has the business rules built right into it, and it helps the person do the right thing the first time, even if they're not familiar with the process. So for example, if we change the way parental notification is going to happen, you'll notice, see the 2 up there? That's going to change, because now we need to fill in section 1. And we don't need to fill in section 2. We go right down to section 5 and 6 for this particular type of process. If we change this to the last item here, you'll see that items 3 and 4 pop up there. The key is I didn't have to read on a form and try and figure that out. The system is smart enough to know the business rules and do those things for me. I didn't have to be trained specifically on the process, and if the process changes, I don't necessarily have to go train everybody in the world again. If they're used to how the system works, it's going to be very, very easy for them just to move through there. So I'm going to come in here, go back to my normal one, and say next, and finish this one up. So we're all good here. Now I'm going to close this one out. So that's a little bit about intent-driven. The other thing, I'll talk about it more in just a moment, but the other thing that's going to be really important here from an organizational change standpoint is, management standpoint, is being flexible in integrating with other systems. Because while it's fabulous that you're working towards data standards, and you should do that as quickly as you can, at the end of the day, that can be a huge task, and getting everybody on the same page can take a very long time. What you don't want to have to do is wait until you have the perfect data sets everywhere to come in and start helping people do their job better. And through flexible data integration, while people are working towards that ideal state, you can still come in and do some really good things. So I'm going to come in as the physician here, and what we'll see again, I pulled in data from CWS CMS, but as I go down a little bit to where we pulled in data from their electronic health record system, we'll see that we have some problems. Their data isn't quite as clean as we need it to be. But the good thing is, because the system knows about that, instead of just saying we can't take your data and do anything with it, we'll take the data that we have, we'll do as much as we can with it, and we'll show them what needs to be fixed. So here, for example, they don't have a license number in their EHR system. So we need to put one of those in. And you'll notice as I go off that field, the system is smart enough to know that this is okay now. Here with the phone number, they have a little typo in their system. That's okay, we'll fix that up. And here for the specialty, that might be a valid specialty in their EHR system. It's not one that we use, so we can get rid of it and we can see what our list is, and we can actually fix that. And so now, without having to make their data perfect before we can start this, we came in, we used the data that they do have, fixed it right on the spot, and now we can continue on with the process. If for some reason the person couldn't do that, let's say that the doctor didn't know or needed some more work done in their system, we actually have a way, I won't jump into it now, but we created this create data correction problem form. What it will do is that the doctor then could fill this out. It could go to their IT person or data administrator. They could fix the problem if it was more severe than something like this. And when they're done, it would notify the physician that they're done and they're ready to come in and pick up on the process from where they left. It's not going to get lost in an answering machine somewhere or email or something else. The system's going to help track everything right through to completion. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come through here and finish it up. And then I just want to talk about one more thing quickly, because again, for our second one, I'm going to log in now as a parent and just show you one more thing quickly, because again, this is probably where you're going to see the most problems with parents who seldomly use a system or seldomly fill out a form. What are the problems that you run into today with the paper-based forms? They don't understand the form, so they don't fill it out properly, and that means they're going to call you and ask you what to do. And then they're still going to fill it out wrong and send it into you, and you're going to have to correct it and send it back to them, and they'll have to correct it and send it back to you, and that can take a couple times sometimes. Here again, by walking them through step by step, showing them just the things they need to do, and again, as they change things, the system is going to change to show them what information that they need to put in there. Coming down here, before we agreed with it, which is just fine, it can go on. If they don't agree, though, they have to type in a reason, and the system is going to make them type in that reason before they fill it in. It's going to enforce, it's going to, in a friendly way, walk the person through what they need to do, but it's going to enforce that they do it right the first time, and that's going to get rid of a lot of those phone calls that make your busy people even busier, and get rid of a lot of the problems sending things back and forth. Okay, so that's my scenario number 2, where we focused on the system has to be intent-driven to really help you so that you can minimize training that's going to need to happen with people, and we need to be very flexible on the way that we're going to incorporate data. Moving towards data standards is excellent. You should do it as quickly as you can. There's always some time where there's just some things that don't happen, and you don't want that to slow you down. You want to use as much as you possibly can. So I've showed you a lot about how the system works for people who are actually going to be using the system. So now I want to quickly show you how we built this system, because what you'll hopefully see is what we did is took exactly what you gave us on that chart right there that everybody's familiar with. And the way that we build an application on our platform is by coming in and building exactly the same thing. Hopefully you can see we've got a few changes here or there, but you can see very much the same thing. And this is really important also from an organizational change management standpoint for 2 reasons. One is, as we're designing the system and building it out, this is what we're building. So the business people, along with the technical people, can see exactly what's being done and can say, yeah, that's right, or no, that's not right. You have to do this step and then that step. If you've got a lot of very technical documentation on how you're building it out, or trying to show code samples or something else, typically business people are going to have a hard time with that. Here, the business people and IT can work side by side to get things done much, much more quickly and easily. And that's a huge problem around organizational change management, is just determining what you're going to build in the first place and getting people to agree on that. This really helps with that. The other thing that helps, in the sample that you gave us, some of the counties had a slightly different process than the other counties. So here's the different flow for Alameda County. And you can see that this goes from the social worker, and instead of going right to the physician, it goes down to the county courts. Now, the nice thing about the platform is that when we go from this base system to this, all we had to do was take all the existing boxes and redraw the arrows between them. The ability to be very flexible on what processes you can create and how quickly you can create them is huge from an organizational change management standpoint also. If you think about it, if you've got over 50 counties in a room together and you say you have to all decide on what the standard process is going to be, come back to me when you've got that standard process. When will they come back? Not anytime soon, right? If you say, now why don't you all work together and come up what you think the standard process should be, as close as it could be for each of you. And by the way, for those of you who have legal reasons, your county attorney has said you have to do things differently, we can come in and we can make slight changes to it like this and get you up and running. That makes collaboration a lot easier, because people don't feel like I'm boxed in. If I don't get it exactly my way, the system isn't going to work for me. Here people can work together and know that they'll be able to make some small changes to get the system just the way that they want it. And that's huge from an organizational change management standpoint. So let me close these out quickly, and just so that you can see I'm not fibbing to you and that this actually works, I'll just do the first, if I click on the right place here, I'll just do the first couple steps here as if I'm from Alameda County. So I'll log on as a social worker from there. and start a new case. Select the people from my county and start a new case for Eric. You'll notice same forms, everything's moving along as it was before. Next, finish. So we're all done here. So now, before I would have logged on as the physician, but now I'm going to log on as the court clerk. And you'll see that down here in their work list, I've got a couple extra ones, but this is the one that I just created. And it's been assigned to them. It's pulled in their information. And when they confirm that that's correct and submit it, it's all ready to go. And you can see that the next step is for it to go on to the physician now. So by coming in and just redrawing out how we want the process to look, the system can automatically make that a working application and makes it much, much easier to not only get everybody to embrace the system in the first place, but as things change, and they will change, to be able to keep up with those changes over time.
We showed you a few different scenarios here, but he'll talk briefly about high level what the architecture looked like, so what actually was Pega doing there. A couple things I wanted to point out. You saw those reports. There was 2 dials on the screen. We have over 100 reports that are out of the box, if you will, and then there's many more options you have to create those, because we're looking to drive efficiencies in our processes. You not just automate a process as it is, but look to re-engineer it to make the process more effective in some way. So when we have reports that we can see, how often does this result in a approval? How often does it result in a failure? How often do we have to go back to the parent for additional information? Where are our bottlenecks? Where are things typically hanging up? We have that empirical evidence. We can start to change the processes to address that. We can do other interesting things that make it quite dynamic in nature. Like if we were going to send it to a certain group of people for approval, we can look at how many tasks people in that group have and send it to the person that has the lightest load, so we can gain efficiencies that way. We can do things like escalations. So if we send it to a business unit and they don't respond within a day or two, we can have the workflow go in a different direction or send out some alerts or things like that. So there's an awful lot of capabilities we can build into here as well. And so just quickly, though, I wanted Dave to address a little bit about what the architecture looks like here.
Yeah, I've been demoing this for a little while now to some of the groups, and somebody said, oh, how do you actually do that? So we won't go through all of this here. But the key is there's a lot of different things that provide the type of flexibility that you need to build a system like this. To highlight a couple of them, the first one is that we have this data model that we can store right in the heart of our application. And what that allows us to do is be very flexible on how we map data. Remember, I can pull in from a couple different systems, map it very easily right to my middle data model, and then use it however I want to. And then on the other end, I can turn those into PDF forms or anything else. So I'm working off all just one representation of my data, but we can pull in data from other sources if somebody's following NEEM or MITA or something else, or even if they don't have a data, we can easily map it in without having to change our systems to do it. The business process management portion of it, you saw how I was able to draw a diagram that looked very much like that and turn that into a working application. That's the magic sort of behind this. Some of the things we didn't talk about here so much is that once you've created the applications using the drawings, not only can you create a web application, but you can just as easily send out things to mobile devices, create PDF forms as we've talked about, and other things. So it's this whole stack of functionality that we bundle together in one platform that allows you to be able to build these types of solutions.
Thank you very much. So at a high level, Pega helps you optimize your citizen experience, optimize the way in which you interact with your citizens and other entities, and we help you automate operations as well. I want to point back to a couple things Paul said. First of all, in regard to the FBI, they're actually using Pega as a background, or as the kind of backbone of their national instant crime background system, so they're quite a big user of Pega. And the other thing around NEEMs, we do feel that's very important as well, and fully support NEEMs data model in our Pega for government architecture. So we're up on a couple of those standards as well. As I said, I have put some literature on everyone's desk. I really would ask you if you're interested in seeing further information, or if you can think of other business processes within your organizations that might benefit from a degree of automation like this. Please send us an email, give me a call, we can set something up. Or I challenge you, if you use this actual process and want to see, well, how could you really change it because my process is a little different? We can kind of do that on the fly and maybe show you a much closer representation of your actual process. So just wanted to thank everyone for their time. The last little shameless sales plug is the fact that both Gartner and Forrester believe that Pega is the organization of choice to handle these kind of issues as well, putting us as #1 in business process management, as well as case management, and a leader in the CRM space. So with that, I will thank you all very much for your time today.